Well, folks, session is over. And after a very compacted 2022 session, a lot of people are asking us, what did we get out of this whole session? What happened with SAPA? The language that passed, does it actually do anything good for us as gun owners? Who fought for us? And who fought against us? And where do things stand going forward? So this is going to be today's video, guys, kind of a macro update on where we are right now, this session. The short version is this, and I'm going to get in the details here in a moment. The short version is that rhinos in Cheyenne passed a terrible version of SAPA. It's not actually SAPA, not even close. And there is very little, as in no protections for gun owners here in Wyoming based on what happened with SF 102. That's the short version. Now, I'm going to back into this for a little bit. So the Second Amendment Preservation Act is not some novel idea to us here in Wyoming. The American Firearms Association, our national affiliate, worked with the Missouri Firearms Coalition in Missouri to pass SAPA last year in Jefferson City. And what they passed in Missouri is what we used as our pattern for our legislation this year in Cheyenne. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. Lots of states claim to have passed SAPA. Lots of states claim that they have a SAPA resolution. Lots of states have what they call, SAPA protections. But the reason why we used the language we did out of Missouri as the framework is because there's only one state in the country where Joe Biden has the DOJ trying repeatedly to overturn SAPA, and that's Missouri. And the reason for it is that Missouri has the only law in America that actually provides strong protections. And the way they do that is pretty cool. In Missouri, and the same would be the case here in Wyoming if our bill had passed this session. In Missouri, if a state or local agency violates your gun rights by enforcing federal gun control laws, the individual gun owner could take that agency, not the officer, but the agency, into civil court for damages. And so what they did in Missouri was take away the requirement to have some other governmental body police another body of government, because we all know that in reality, that simply doesn't happen. That simply doesn't happen. And so that's what they did in Missouri. And that was what our bill would do here in Wyoming. Senate File 87, we spent much of the fall drafting that. Senate File 87, House Bill 133. And this bill would emulate all those parts of Missouri code. No federal law could be enforced by our law enforcement officers here in Wyoming. No task force work would be allowed, which would circumvent state law and allow state cops to assist in gun confiscation via task forces. And the civil penalties lie with us. We could take them into court ourselves, and there are $50,000 penalties per violation. That's what our legislation would do. And that's why it had so much opposition from anti-gun lobbyists in Cheyenne. And frankly, if for a gun rights organization, if you don't have anti-gun lobbyists trying to shut down your bill, we're not doing our job right. And that's what our bill did. Senate File 87, House Bill 133. But as you all know now, rhinos in the state capitol, both chambers, aided by Gun Owners of America, came in the end of the first week of session in Cheyenne, and they filed their own version of what they called SAPA. They took the name, they took some of the same sounding language, and they destroyed it. Now, here's where things stand now after all the amendments, all the votes, and all the floor action is behind us. At the end of the day, Senate File 102, that's what passed and is now on Governor Gordon's desk. Senate File 102, pushed by, I have some photographs here somewhere, pushed by Senator Larry Hicks, Senator Tara Nethercott, Senate President Dan Dockstetter, and a whole bunch of additional rhino traders in the state capitol. They passed this language, and it uses the same title, but folks, there is no citizen enforcement. I'll say it again. They removed the primary portion of SAPA, which is citizen enforcement. That's gone. That's gone. So the only way that SAPA would actually be beneficial to gun owners here in Wyoming is if your county attorney or the attorney general decides that they're going to intervene on your behalf. Now, separate from WIGO versus GOA versus Senator Bouchard versus Senator Larry Hicks, all that stuff, put it out of your mind for a moment. Think about your county prosecutor. Think about your county prosecutor and ask yourself if you think there's even a chance that they would bring the county sheriff's department into court for a SAPA violation. Is there any chance your county attorney would bring your local police department into court for a SAPA violation? You know as well as I do. The county prosecutors, county sheriffs, these people are friends, they're work colleagues, they're drinking buddies, whatever you want to call it. They work together 5 days a week. And the idea that they're going to all of a sudden take their local law enforcement agency into court for a SAPA violation is absolutely absurd. We all know it's never going to happen. And you don't have to take our word for it, because all you have to do is look and see at who lobbied on what side of this bill. Byron Odakofen, the law enforcement lobbyist in Cheyenne, had every sheriff in the state oppose our SAPA legislation. And then when it came to the version pushed by Larry Hicks, he had every sheriff in the state publicly champion that legislation. Now, either every sheriff in the state had an aha moment and realized they should stop opposing SAPA, or in this case, what actually happened is every sheriff in the state realized that Senate File 102 would never get them in hot water, because they know the county attorney would never bring them into court. And so that was the heart and soul of the destruction that took place this session on SAPA. Sure, it still uses the SAPA acronym, but there's no protection for gun owners, because it doesn't matter how good the language is if it will never be enforced. And that is the problem with Senate File 102. It will never be enforced. The bill also very clearly was written so that it only applies to officers who are paid by tax dollars that originate here in Wyoming. So what does that mean? Well, it's very simple. When these executive orders take effect later on this year, and there's two of them. The first one deals with 80% lowers. The second one deals with pistol braces. When those take effect later on this year, you know that Joe Biden and Merrick Garland and the whole anti-gun government we have right now, they know that to advance their idea of gun confiscation in red states, they're going to have to use a joint federal task force. They're going to have feds come into our state and assemble a local group of officers via a joint federal and local task force to do that kind of enforcement. That's what's going to happen. You're going to see an ATF team come up into our state from Denver, something like that, and they're going to grab a handful of troopers over here and sheriff's deputies over here and some Cheyenne or Casper city cops over here, and they can form up a joint federal task force and go around enforcing these two executive orders. And when they do that, those officers are no longer paid by Wyoming tax dollars. They are then paid for by federal tax dollars. And if you read SF 102, you'll see it only applies if these officers are paid by our tax dollars, AKA these task forces can and will be assembled. They can and will confiscate firearms or accessories or bring charges against gun owners. And SF 102 will not provide any protection because those officers are being paid for by money that came from outside of the state of Wyoming. Everybody knows this. That's why law enforcement lobbyists in Cheyenne are all in favor of SF 102, because they know these two carve-outs mean that they're never going to have to worry about any enforcement against law enforcement agencies in the state. It's not just WIGO who's telling you this. The 10th Amendment Center has done multiple thorough evaluations and analyses of SF 102 as it went through the system, through the process in the Capitol, and they concluded it was an absolute sham bill. Sham bill. And they're right. They're right. Now, people are asking us, how in God's name could gun owners of America be on the wrong side of this issue. All I can tell you, folks, is that they have never been, in my 15 years of doing gun politics in states all across the country, GOA has never been involved in the fight for gun rights in the state capitol physically. I have never, until this year, seen a GOA lobbyist in any state capitol where I have worked. Now, this year, for the first time, they did. They bring in a guy named Mark Jones. Mark Jones he moved in here, I guess, last fall from a different state. And his career, from what I read, is as a natural a wildlife biologist. So he's been measuring frogs' frogs' body parts for the last part of his career. And Mark Jones parachutes into Wyoming, and he says, "I'm here to represent gun owners of America." And he walked around, and he didn't go to. This is how you can tell the guy is a chump. How you can tell the guy is working with the wrong side. He didn't go and get Troy McEwen on his bill. He didn't go and get Anthony Bouchard on his bill. He didn't go and get Tom James on his bill. He didn't go and get Tim French on his bill. He didn't go and get the other conservatives whose names I'm forgetting right now off the top of my head in the Senate on his bill. No. He went to Larry Hicks. He went to Tara Nethercott. Tara Nethercott did her damnedest to oppose Stand Your Ground law in 2018. She did her damnedest to try to roll it back after it was already signed into law in 2019. And she's been an enemy to gun owners for years in the state capitol. And Larry Hicks, as everybody knows, Senate leadership team has been nothing but problems for gun owners for years. Everybody who does gun politics or follows gun politics in Cheyenne knows this. So GOA has a lobbyist that comes into the state from out of nowhere, works with all the wrong people in the Senate side. In the House, this idiot didn't go and talk with Bob Whorf. He didn't ask Bob Whorf to carry his bill. He didn't talk with guys like Dan Larson, the guys who've been fighting for gun rights for years. He didn't go talk to Bill Fortner. He didn't talk to any of the guys who've been fighting for gun rights in Cheyenne. He goes to sniveling little whiners like Mark Jennings, who have intentionally drafted bills in the past that were designed to fail and designed to give cover to anti-gun rhinos at election time. That's what Mark did in 2020. Everyone knows that. And so he takes Mark Jennings and all these rhinos in the opposing chamber, and he makes them his key sponsors. So I cannot answer the question of why they did this. All I can tell you is that this was done on purpose. This was done very intentionally. This was done on purpose to not only stop real SAPA this year, but also to give all of the cover that anti-gun rhinos are hoping to have for the upcoming election cycle. It's shameful stuff. Shameful stuff. And again, this was not done on accident. This wasn't some kind of an oops. This was done on purpose by the leading rhinos in the state capitol. That's why, for example, when I was there to testify in the Judiciary Committee, they wouldn't let me speak because Tara Nethercott did not want to have our talking points out there for the world to see. They were desperately trying to maintain this narrative that SF 102 would actually provide protections to gun owners. Everyone knows that it won't. The Sheriff's Association knows it won't. That's why they're supporting this. So at the end of the day, after session is over, and assuming that Governor Gordon signs this into law, what you have for actual protections are limited to the extent that your county attorney will ever enforce a violation. And I'm telling you right now, that will simply not happen. And here's the thing. The DOJ is not going into other states that have this version on the books and trying to repeal it. Idaho, for example, our neighbors, has almost identical language in effect. And the DOJ has never lifted a finger trying to repeal Idaho's law because they know it's the same thing. If the enforcement lies with a governmental agency, it's not going to be enforced. It's not going to be enforced. So they're not trying to repeal this anywhere else but in Missouri, and that's because of the citizen enforcement capabilities. When they took those out of the language here in Cheyenne, that was done to tank SAPA and give all the gun owners in the state a false hope that we have protection. And I'm telling you right now that we do not. Now, I want to draw some attention to some names. I mentioned some of the rhinos, the moderates who are on the wrong side of this, but you have to understand the strength of some of these guys in the state capitol who have been fighting for you all session long, because it's so easy. It's so easy to go in with the crowd and just vote the way you're told to vote by leadership, and damn the consequences. What you have happening right now are strong people in the House and Senate who voted no on this sham bill. They could have voted yes. And they could have said, hey, you know what? Did the best I could. I'm a yes vote because I was told to vote yes. And yeah, it's not going to protect you, but I was a yes vote. They could have done that. But the names I'm going to read off to you are pro-gun champions who knew that passing this bill was a huge step backward for gun owners, because number one, there is no protection. So it offers false hope to gun owners. Number two, it's going to be used at election time to prop up anti-gun Republicans. And these guys stood tall for your gun rights this session by voting no on a bill they knew was a sham. The names include, on the Senate side, Anthony Bouchard. Everyone knows that. Champion for gun owners, Anthony Bouchard. Bo Beitman, longtime supporter. Tim French. Troy McEwen. These two guys won their elections just in 2020 because exactly of things like this. Republicans who were opposing our gun rights, and these guys, McEwen and French, ran against those kind of rhinos, and they got there because gunners are sick and tired of this kind of crap. Tom James, strong supporter of gun rights. And of course, Tim Salazar, who led the fight in the House back in 2018 for stand your ground law. So Senator Beitman, Bouchard, French, James, McEwen, and Salazar. These 6 Republicans are the ones who fought like dogs for you this session. Again, it's easy to be a yes vote. It's easy to say, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to join the team. I'm just going to be part of the club. The hell with gun owners. They could have done that. They chose not to. And to see gun owners of America and their idiot lobbyists here in Cheyenne trying to attack these people by email is disgusting. Over in the House, we have additional champions, big-time champions. Representative Bob Worf, the lead sponsor on this year's SAPA bill. Lead sponsor, Bob Worf. Representative Dan Larson. Dan Larson isn't just a pro-gun Republican. When the Republicans in the Capitol are trying to lock bills down, it's Dan Larson who is forcing them to vote on gun bills this year and in previous years. That allows us to expose these anti-gun rhinos at election time. Representative Baker, another strong yes vote this year. Representative Bill Fortner voted the right way this year. Thank you for that. Representative Heiner. All of these guys stood up and said, this is bullshit. This is wrong. This is an attempt by moderates to use our gun rights as an excuse, as campaign fodder at election time. So if you hear people saying these guys are anti-gun, now you have the truth. Make sure that everyone around you knows these guys fought for gun owners this session in Cheyenne. The idea that this list of people in the House and Senate is being attacked for being anti-gun is absurd. Everyone knows that here at WIGO. We all know these guys are champions. But make sure everyone else hears that around you as well, because the narrative is trying to be spun by lobbyists from Gun Owners of America. These guys are anti-gun. Disgusting stuff. So, folks, we're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens with this. My fear is that there's going to be gun owners who think that we have protections now because of this legislation, who are going to find out the hard way later on this year when a federal task force comes to their door looking to grab their pistol braces or an 80% lower, and they're going to find out the hard way that we have no protections here in Wyoming. Folks, it is very easy to pass legislation that is watered down and is worthless just to get a win. If WIGO's goal here was just to get a win and have selfies with Larry Hicks and the Speaker of the House, that'd have been easy. We would have sat back quietly, supported SF 102. All the rhinos in Cheyenne would sing our praises. They'd all pose for a selfie with us. And we could have lied to you. We could have fooled you, or tried to. We wouldn't, because you guys would call us out for it. Tried to fool you and say, this is SAPA. We did it. That'd be easy. That'd be easy, but that'd be a lie. That would be a lie. So, folks, this is what happened this session. This is why it happened this session, and this is why these are the guys who stood tall and fought for your gun rights. If you don't hear your Republican representative or state senator's name listed off right there, you have to understand this. They intentionally betrayed your trust. They intentionally attacked SAPA with this bill because they want campaign cover at election time from WIGO. It's that simple. It's that simple. So it's an election year, though. It's an election year. And WIGO, as you guys know, is on the verge of wrapping up a federal lawsuit with the state of Wyoming. We have every expectation of getting back to our favorite task of exposing gun grabbers at election time in the primary and general election. There will be people held accountable for this. Of that, you have my absolute promise. But for the time being, make sure every gun owner you know has this information. Share our video, share it on social media, share it by email, whatever you can do. Get the word out there. Gun owners were treated shamefully this session. It was not done on accident. And those folks have to pay a price. Guys, that's all I have time for right now. Join our fight at joinwygo.com, and we'll keep you informed as always. Thank you.